Hello, listeners. It's Lisa Starr, and we're back with another episode of StarrCast. So, I've been really interested in the way that wellness has been morphing over the last 5 years in particular. We're seeing wellness combine with fitness, combine with spa, combine with co working. And we're going to dive a little bit deeper into some of those trends with today's guest, who I'm so excited to have. It's Alexia Brue. She is a digital media founder, board director, strategic advisor. She was the co-founder and CEO of Well+Good, which, if you've been in the wellness industry for any time, you know was a fabulous website where we used to all go and get all of our info. She sold it, and she is now the founder and CEO of The Practice. We're going to dive into what that is. So thanks so much for joining us today, Alexia.
Thanks, Lisa. I am thrilled to be here.
We're happy to have you. So before we get into the current path of Alexia, let's start back at the beginning. Not quite the beginning, but I know you were a journalism major in college and you probably set out on that route. I would love for the listeners to hear more about how you ended up in the wellness industry.
Yeah, well, actually, I was a classics major in college, so Greek and Latin, and then I went back to journalism school sort of mid-career. But funnily enough, let's see, I started my career in book publishing, and I had a real interest in bathhouses. And so it's very exciting to see the sort of bathhouse boom right now. But when I was in my mid-20s, I spent a year traveling the world researching public bathing traditions globally, and I did a book called Cathedrals of the Flesh.
Why did you do that? What was the impetus for that?
Well, I was always sort of entrepreneurial and I wanted to open a bathhouse in New York City, but I was,
How prescient of you.
no, it's so funny now. Way too early when I was thinking
Hmm.
about this, sort of 2000. But because I was in publishing and it was an era in publishing where if you had an interesting idea for a book, you could sell a first book at that time for an amount of money that you could sort of live on for a year. And so I was able to do that and quit my job and travel and see all these great global bathing traditions in Japan and Russia and Hungary and Finland. And then actually that led to writing. So I came back and that's when I met our mutual friend, Susie Ellis at Spa Finder, did a lot of work there and ended up not opening the bathhouse. I don't think the timing was quite right.
You were clearly ahead of your time, though. What was the name of the book again?
Cathedrals of the Flesh, My Search for the
Excellent.
Perfect Bath. That is what the later popes used to call, or sort of in Rome, circa 500, they would call the bathhouses cathedrals of the flesh, and I love that term.
I love that term as well. So the bathhouse didn't happen, but you got into the wellness industry kind of through this bathhouse interest of yours.
So I've always had this interest in physical spaces, but then I really went on this like media detour, and worked in magazine publishing, and then teamed up with my co-founder Melise Galula, and we started Well+Good in about 2009. And I mean, you'll obviously, or most of your listeners will remember like the global financial crisis and
Hmm.
what that did to the magazine industry, what that did to travel. And so we were really noticing that sort of local wellness scenes were really taking off because people weren't traveling as much. And there was this really big interest during the GFC in wellness and what that meant closer to home, and all these really what were then very new concepts like Soul Cycle and boutique fitness taking off. And we just didn't see people really covering those small
Mm.
local businesses in a fun, newsworthy way.
Well, I loved Well+Good. I can remember finding it and thinking, this is genius, good sweat, good eats, whatever the subtitles were. And there was always such timely info. Of course, when you're in New York, you're kind of at the center of where things start. But you both really nailed it. I mean, it was an excellent site for all things wellness, consumer and trade.
I think because we were so passionate about the space and we loved breaking news and we loved talking to all of the experts and newsmakers in the space. Yeah, it really did serve a purpose, I think, of bringing the community together and elevating the conversation around wellness. And sort of furthering it. And because we thought, these are all these incredible like geniuses and visionaries in the space, and no one's doing like big profiles on them. So we were really, I think, the first to realize these are fascinating, newsworthy people and topics, and let's cover this. So that definitely an era when like digital media like was in its heyday, when you could have an idea like we did and be able to start a media company without a lot of financial resources and grow it. I mean, it's very different now, which is one of the reasons like Well+Good doesn't exist anymore. But yeah, we had a lot of fun for that chapter and
It
recognize
really helped, I think, give credibility to the concept of wellness as a business, because that word wasn't even being used very much back then in the early aughts, let's say. And so
mm,
you really said, "Oh no, this is a thing, and we're going to cover it." And it really gave credibility to many of the founders, as you say, that you discovered that were developing these interesting businesses. So you grew Well+Good, you sold it as one should. You worked as an SVP at the company that purchased you for several years, correct?
I did, yeah.
And
Yeah.
then you decided it was time to start something new.
Yeah, I just sort of had that itch and that desire to start something. I love early stage stuff. And so I think, for me, I'm the kind of founder that I always like, want to start something that I as a consumer want, and then I don't feel like I'm being served as a consumer, and I'm not one, yeah, it's always very personal to me.
Hmm.
And so I think as a lifelong fitness enthusiast, and then reading everything that I was reading around health span and longevity science, I just started to think that there was like a different way that personal training should happen, and sort of fitness more generally. So, and then I left New York City and I moved to the suburbs. And I think then being outside of the city with all of its sort of incredible like richness and diversity and all these fitness options, and being in a much smaller city, I just saw an opportunity of like, let's try this, and I can try it on a smaller sort of pilot laboratory scale. And I'd never done in person, and so that felt sort of new and exciting and scary in a good way.
So the business is called The Practice.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm reading from the website, it says it is Greenwich's first personal training studio built around health span.
Mm-hmm.
That's a word we're just starting to hear now. What does that word mean in the use of in your brain when you were creating the practice? You were focused on health span. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so health span is the number of years that we're here in vibrant health, living our fullest, richest life, whatever that means to us. And so there's a lot of talk around squaring the lifespan, health span curve. And so, as you and I both know, a lot of people will spend the last decade of their life or even longer in not very good health,
Mm-hmm.
shuttling back and forth to doctor's appointments, not doing the activities they loved or being with their loved ones and maybe the way that they want to. And through lifestyle intervention, we really have an opportunity to square that curve so that our health span and our lifespan are really aligned. And, not to be dark, but like, when I think about how I want to leave this earth, it's like doing something like climbing a 14er in Colorado or playing tennis.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be a burden on
Not in the
myself.
recliner watching television.
No, and I don't want my children to, have to, take me to lots of doctor's appointments and worry about who's taking care of mom. And so I want to do whatever is in my power to maintain my capabilities and show up in life the way that I want to. Um, and so, as like Mark Hyman says, and it's a popular quotation, like your genetics load the gun, but you pull the trigger, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so we all have whatever genetic stuff we're dealing with, but our lifestyle and exercise in particular can be this really potent, powerful intervention to help extend our health span and make it align with our lifespan.
Well, certainly moving the body, we know, is a key. You cannot stop moving. I have a 97-year-old father-in-law who still plays some golf and goes out on walks. And he
Oh,
says, you just don't sit down, you just keep moving. So this is a great
love.
time for fitness. I mean, just in the past 2 weeks, I have been to a Barry's boot camp, to a solid core. I go to F45. I go to core power yoga. There's all these franchises doing interesting and some very niche things in fitness.
That is
Tell us,
awesome.
well, I'd like to try things, right? And
Yeah.
when you travel, you're like, oh, what's nearby? I'll try this or that. It's been too cold to run outside, God knows, in the Northeast. The practice, tell us how you came to this idea of how you would address that health span concern through a physical fitness model.
hmm Yeah. So, I think we started to see a lot of like longevity diagnostic places pop up,
Mhm.
that, like sorry, you're gonna have to edit this pause. Over the last couple of years, as you and I have seen through Global Wellness Summit and so on, a lot of diagnostic centers have opened up. Like there is Atria, there's Eternal, there's Fountain Life,
Mhm.
there's Princeton Longevity. There's so many of these places, and they give people a lot of data. That's great. A lot of that data can create anxiety. But
Mhm.
what I was seeing is like one of the reframes was that people should be strength training. You go and you pay thousands of dollars for these diagnostics, and then it's like, go strength train. And then there was no sort of program for that. So I got really excited about offering the actual care that people needed, because just this advice, especially to women, that we should lift heavier and we should build
Mhm.
muscle mass. It's like something that's like coming through in all of our Instagram algorithms and
Mhm.
so
For
on.
sure.
But then it's sort of like how, and how to do that safely and so on. And so I wanted to create an environment and a system where people could come and train and be on a program that we would both assess them at the beginning and then like reassess every 24 sessions, and really keep track of how their capability around doing like certain key things, whether it's a deadlift or a goblet squat, or we have other strength metrics that we look at, their lean skeletal muscle mass, their VO2 max in terms of how good their cardiorespiratory fitness is. Like, how do we keep track of all of this and really demonstrate to the client that they're improving? Because I felt like a lot of personal
Mhm.
training, the client was showing up, you're paying this money, and then you really don't know if you're getting better. And a lot of times the trainers, I feel like, out of a desire, a well-placed desire to keep the client entertained and stuff, they're constantly like changing things, and you're not sort of on a program. So
Mm.
I teamed up with a really talented trainer named Nick Kausa, and we use a style of training called undulating periodization. Nick can speak about it a lot better than I can, but we have different 7-week blocks that our clients are in that elicit a strength response.
7 week blocks, you say?
Yeah, 7-week blocks. And it's sort of
Of
like
undulating personalization?
periodization. So
Periodization. Okay.
yes, we're changing the weights in a way that helps clients build skeletal muscle mass. Like I know since I've started with Nick and I've been working together about 6 months now, and I've added 4 pounds of muscle, which I'm 53. It's not
Hmm.
easy to do. You know what I mean? So,
No, that is
um,
not.
yeah, and I hadn't added that kind of muscle. I'd sort of been like, maintaining okay in the
Hmm.
group stuff I was doing, but then being really prescriptive about weights and staying on a program, and lifting, frankly, a lot heavier than I would be comfortable lifting on my own. I think that's also, why it can make sense to invest in personal training, because you do have that one-on-one care that just F45, as fantastic as it is, or Barry's, they
Mm.
can't give you that as safely. So yeah, so we really help clients like know that they're moving in the direction that they want to. And we also are like sitting down with them at the beginning and in our intake form, asking them what kind of life they want to have in their 80s and 90s. What are the activities that they want to be doing?
Hmm.
And just helping them reverse engineer what that means for them at 45 or 50 or 65. Our clients sort of range in age from early 40s to early 70s right now, but we've only been in business for about 10 weeks. um, but yeah, so we build a program for them and like really help them understand the capacity that they need now and the capability that they need now to to be the 85-year-old that they want to be. Because I think it's so easy to assume that we're all just going to
Hmm.
float along and everything's going to be fine. And, but a lot of intervention goes into um, maintaining, and building.
Love that you're asking them that question because we may think of it, but it's not often that you are asked. I don't think my physician has ever asked me, how do you want your life to be when you're 70, 80, 90? As you say, we just sort of assume we'll go along and but how? Because as we age, we learn that physiological changes happen whether we want them to or not. I mean, we eat right, we exercise, we put the right things on our skin, and yet things change that you just can't help. And so you do need to plan ahead. And I love that you're starting with that sort of sitting down and thinking about what do you want that to look like and how can you change it now? What can you do now?
Yeah, absolutely. And then we have these like beautiful health span report that we walk them through that shows them sort of how they're doing relative to their age and gender cohort. And at the end of that, we do have these sort of downer, Debbie Downer graphs on just how your skeletal muscle mass and your lung capacity is going to deteriorate over
Mm.
time. And really, it is meant to be empowering because there is an opportunity to intervene and to improve all of these metrics, but just kind of giving people that wake up call that, yeah, gravity and, just aging is going to happen. We can choose to either kind of be bummed out about it, or we can choose to like
Do
show up
something.
and, yeah, do something. Yeah.
I was
So,
having that discussion this morning with someone about aging, and I said, I know I can't control what happens to me, but I can control how I'll feel about it when it does, right? And I know that if I do get sick at some point, I won't look back and say, oh, if only I had started eating right or working out more, because I'm doing those things. So to me, it's like that mental, like taking charge of your destiny in this much as you can do so.
totally. I love that. Yeah. It's knowing that you did everything that you could do. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, we're not, we can't see the future yet. That'll be next year. So the practice is strength training, right? That sounds like it's the basis of it as opposed to cardio, or is there cardio involved as well?
Yeah, so we do some cardio metabolic bursts at the end of our workouts usually. And so and again, this is where Nick would be a better guest than I am, but we talk about for our clients that they should both do zone 2 training. So that's like their steady state cardio outside of the practice, and we give them homework for that if they want.
Hmm.
So if we know that you love hiking, we might say, "Hey, Lisa, make sure you're doing 4 45-minute sessions. Ideally, that's a lot, but like that's what we hope of steady state cardio. And we'll give you what your exact zone 2 is, because you will have done a VO2 max test with us and we'll know what your zone 2 looks like. And I think that's because our wearables are directionally correct, but they're not totally accurate.
So four 45-minute sessions per week. That's what we
Yeah.
should be doing. Wow.
Yeah. It's a
Okay.
lot. That's sort of like aim for that. And then in the studio, we train zones 4 and 5. And so that will typically be on the assault bike or the ski erg or the treadmill. And those are more the spiky, like,
Mm.
get your heart rate way up. And it's sort of like building two different kinds of triangles. It's like, you know, the sort of the low triangle and then the
Hmm.
big spike. Cause you want your sort of cardio triangle to be as large and high as possible. And we have sort of fun slides on teaching clients like how to improve their cardio.
So you have on the website one method, five systems. What are those practice five components of the workout?
Yeah, so when we were thinking about fitness and how to create a framework for people to understand all the things that they should be thinking about, we came up with these 5 things, which are first is body composition. And so that's
Hmm.
what we're going to look at first day when someone comes in. And really the only things we care about there, Lisa, are like our skeletal muscle mass, their body fat percentage, and their visceral body fat. Number on a scale doesn't matter. We just
Hmm.
want to know that our client has adequate muscle to age well and to not fall below that frailty line
Hmm.
where they can't do the things of daily living. So, which sounds far off from where we sit, but what's been very eye-opening to me is that when I look at a lot of our female clients, they are, for the most part, very under muscled relative to like
Mm.
where they should be at. And it's sort of like not yet a problem in their early 50s, but it will become a problem by their 70s. So it's interesting. And we capture all this data and we're starting to like, we have a data set now that will be interesting to kind of figure out what we do
For
with that.
sure.
So, sorry, I sort of detoured there. So, body composition, then we look at control, and that is
Uh-huh.
your stability, your mobility, and your balance. And we measure that in different ways. And then we look at cognition. And for us, it's mainly dual task processing. So, we're looking at your ability to do certain things using this tool called Blaze Pods. And then we ask you to do the same exercise, but we make you solve some problems, some mental
Mm.
problems while you're doing the same thing. And we see what the cost is. It's called
Mm-hmm.
the tug method, what the cost is of when we add in that mental load. How much time does it add to that exercise? So just sort of a proxy for your ability to dual task well. And we also measured things like power, lateral agility in that cognition and power domain. And then there is capability. And that's like we're looking at everything from your ability to farmer's carry, deadlift, push up tests. And then there's cardio is the fifth C, and that's the VO2 max test. And then we do an anaerobic power test. So that happens over 2 1-hour sessions. It's pretty like full
That's a
on.
lot.
Yeah. And I would say most clients like love it, the
Mm.
ones that seek us out. Some are intimidated by it, and we're sort of, I think we're early stages, and we do have like a way that people can join and still train without dealing with all of that data. But pretty much right now, we are as busy as we can be with our trainer staff for with people who just are very excited to like fully engage in the method.
It's fascinating that you're so busy already, 10 weeks in. Your studio, tell us a little bit about the logistics of it, how big it is, how many people can you accommodate at one time?
Yeah, so it's very intimate. It's about 1,300 square feet. It's one-on-one, and so we can train at most 3 people at once. It's I wanted to create something that felt really beautiful and almost like residential in a way, and have the atmosphere be both very energizing and relaxing at the same time. So it's a lot of like really deep greens, and there's pictures on the website.
It's beautiful from the website, what I've seen. Very nice.
Thank you. I worked with 2 friends who are designers who they'd never done a gym before. And so it was nice to bring that like fresh perspective
Hmm.
to it. And like there's art on the walls. Like it doesn't feel like a gym aside from like the equipment, obviously. But yeah, so it's a pilot location, and I like the intimacy of it a lot. I think that I'm a huge group fitness fan, as are you, but in this particular endeavor, I just wanted it to be super hands-on and intimate.
And how long does a session typically last, Alexia?
An hour.
An hour. Okay. So you have three people coming in, working out for an hour, they leave, three more people come.
Yeah, I mean, technically it's like 55-minute session. So there's like
Uh-huh.
a little bit of, but like the trainers always go to a full hour. And then, yeah, there's just sort of a quick handoff.
So are you open? Like, I guess you can open from a business perspective when people book, right? I mean, you're not just like, we're open from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. every night. Or how does it work?
Yeah, so I mean, technically we are open from like 5 a.m. until 7 p.m., but it is by appointment only. So, if no one's booked a 5 a.m. spot,
Hmm.
no one's going in and opening the doors. We don't have like a manager on duty because it is
Hmm.
all one-on-one appointments set up,
Hmm.
and we have, the systems in place to like, make it pretty frictionless for the trainers to just check people in and start their sessions. We do have a little bit of retail, but it's pretty easy for people to check out. So we don't, because it's all very one-on-one and it's only 3 people coming in at once, we don't have the volume that necessitates a
Sure.
full-time manager there.
And so do guests purchase like a class pack or a program or a monthly? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, so how we're doing it currently is they would join our membership program. So we have an annual HealthSpan Plus membership, and it's only $200 a year currently, but that's just like you're becoming part of our community. It's like our version of Amex Platinum,
Hmm.
you are getting access to our best rates on training. You're getting the ongoing reassessments that we do and all of the sort of behind the scenes, like tracking of your weights and testing and utilization of our digital tools. So that's like the full experience. And that's what almost everyone does. And then they would buy packages, whether it's a 12 pack, 24, or 48 pack.
And the price of a workout is mid 150. Is that correct? Somewhere in there?
Anywhere from 145 a session for a client buying a 48 pack up through to 185 a session
Hmm.
for clients who are just training a la carte.
And how many times a week do you like to see your?
Yeah, so we recommend 2 to 3 times a week. I would say most of our clients are training twice a week with us.
Hmm.
Um, but we've also had a lot of clients who are only able to come once a week for, whether it's geography or budget, but they really like the programming,
Hmm.
and the blocks that we do and the way that we are able to undulate their weights. And so we're now developing a program, a way to help people with hybrid. So like they come to us once a week and we program their other 2 days of strength training.
Interesting,
Yeah.
really. I mean, well, Greenwich, Connecticut sounds like the right place for something that, it's not inexpensive what you're doing, but the results, I'm sure when you weigh, yes, you don't have to spend this money, but would you like to live 10 more years with HealthSpan? Then of course it's worth it. Like we hear from Fountain Life and the other models, yes, you have to pay for access to some of these metrics and guidance, but, it's your life.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot less expensive than like assisted living when
Hmm.
you're older. But it is expensive. The personal training model, it's you're working one on one with someone. It just sort of costs more. But I think that there are a lot of great options, like even in something like Peloton, which for $15 a month you can have access to incredible strength training content. So it's just like, yeah. But I think we are very reasonably priced for personal training. Like I
Hmm.
would say, what we're offering this level of service, assessing, tracking, super premium environment at a kind of a below market. You know what I mean? Because we're offering it at what personal training rates sort of are in this geography, and a lot less than what the going rate is in like New York City or a metro
Hmm.
area. Yeah, I think anyway, sorry, Lisa, I'm trailing off there. You'll have to edit
No,
that.
it's fine. It's interesting that people are already flocking to it. Like this seems like a new concept that's hard to explain. What's your elevator pitch of the practice?
I should have this down by now, but oh my God, and I also didn't sleep last night. All right, sorry. Okay. My elevator pitch for the practice. Lisa, I'm sorry. You're gonna making your editing I've like had so
Fine.
many different things, but look at ultimately when I think about the okay, what's our elevator pitch? I really wanted to create something for people who don't want to age on autopilot and who want to take a very active, engaged, proactive approach to building their fitness for health span. And so I think how we're different is that we not only assess you at the beginning, but we're reassessing you every 24 sessions. And we are building out a sort of 360-degree movement program that tells you what to do not only when you're in our studio, but when you're not. And we are really outcomes oriented in a
Mm.
way that other training models aren't currently, and that we are reassessing you and holding ourselves to account to actually like improve these key fitness biomarkers for our clients. So we are so deeply involved in the success of our client, I think in a way that feels new and different. And I also think clients, from the feedback that I get from them, feel like they are on much more of a program than other personal training things.
Measurements are key. I've been at gyms where you get measured in some way. Nothing is as detailed as what you're doing, but maybe you get your weight and your body fat and your resting heart rate, et cetera. And then, you may not ever get it again. You just get your program and you start doing it and you feel, I last week I lifted a 15 pounder. Now I can do an 18 pounder, but it's not getting measured again. To me, that's the genius of this, is like being able to show results. Now, conversely, that means in 24 sessions, you need to be able to show results to people. And
Yes,
you were
totally.
confident that you could do that.
Not necessarily. I mean, well, maybe just go back to the elevator pitch again. Sorry, Lisa. I think how we see the practice is as the next evolution of what personal training should be. And so I think all personal training will be headed this way, but I think clients right now are more and more sophisticated and they want a more outcomes oriented approach to personal training. So it's not enough for studios to just train people, make them sweat, keep them entertained for that, hour or two a week. I think there's like now an onus that like training studios really thoroughly assess a client at the beginning. And I think our assessment is the most thorough one that I know of in any fitness environment, outside of the places I mentioned earlier, like a Fountain Life. And then I think we're really unique in that we are reassessing.
Mm-hmm.
And then having plans that really training plans that really solicit this response that we're looking for. And, as to your question of like, what if someone's not improving? I think that is a conversation that like we want to have so that we can understand, like, is that client's nutrition supporting what they're doing at the
Yeah.
practice? You know,
Yeah, you've
maybe,
only got them for that 1 hour. You don't know what
yeah,
happens the
2
rest of
hours.
the time.
Exactly. And so I think just being open to that conversation, seeing if like maybe they want to meet with one of the nutritionists that we work with. Maybe they're
Mm-hmm.
not sleeping well. Maybe they're traveling. So like figuring out what's going on versus like just burying our head in the sand and not reassessing. And I think because this is a B2B audience, I know, and I think it's interesting to note that at a lot of gyms, they don't pay the trainers the same for assessments. So a lot of places, they simply don't reassess because there's no incentive for the trainer to do that. And so I also wanted to solve some of those structural issues that maybe exist in the business that weren't really helping the client, right? Because trainers, A, aren't getting paid appropriately to reassess a client, and B, might be scared of losing that client
If they're
they
not
weren't,
showing results,
if
right?
they're not
Sure.
showing results. But I feel like this is what we're here to try. So, A,
Mm-hmm.
solve the problem for making sure that trainers get compensated for reassessments and that we're like really collaborating on a client's success. And then, yeah, digging in to like solve it as a case. Like each client, like we care deeply about them and about their trunk stability and about their VO2 max and all of it.
I think that it's it's something with the accountability, right, Alexia? I mean, this sounds like I'm working with someone together, and so I'm more likely to stick to the program than I might be if I was off on my own on an average gym.
Totally. And like Lisa, if you knew that you were, in 12 weeks coming back for your reassessment, right? That creates more adherence to the
Mhm.
program, more engagement for you as the client.
100%. I mean, most of us would not want to perform worse on the test we took the second time, right? So, yeah,
Yeah.
I know I'm that sort of person, which reminds me about the testing. I mean, it sounds fairly elaborate and some of it almost medical. Are there any medical professionals involved, Alexia, or what are the certifications of the trainers at the practice?
Yeah, so all of our trainers are either CSCS or NASM certified. Doing a VO2 max test is probably the most technical thing we have, but that's, something that any good fitness professional will know how to do. And then the body composition it's an in-body 580, so it's a bioimpedance. But all of our trainers are really knowledgeable. But yeah, it doesn't cross into medical.
Oh, that's good. That's a good model.
We stay in
So
our yeah.
you stay in your lane. The
But as
customers,
Gabrielle Lyon said, which I thought I love her book Forever Strong, and she pointed out, how on earth is it that when you go into a doctor's office, they're not measuring your skeletal muscle mass. Like her
Hmm.
point is like, you know, that is one of your vital signs. Skeletal muscle mass should be in a medical environment, but it's not. My point.
So the clients so far, are they who you expected in terms of age range and other demographics? I mean, did you have a sort of a target person that would think that this resonated with them?
I think originally, like going back to the point that I'd like to create businesses sort of where I feel a personal need, I really had midlife women in mind who are at that sort of phase where, things that you had been doing might no longer be working, where it's getting harder to build muscle. So I was really thinking about that perimenopause transition and what
Mm.
that does to your bone health, and just losing estrogen and all of the things that can happen there, and how developing muscle can really help counteract a lot of that. So midlife women is definitely like one cohort that we see a lot of. I would also say like men who are, sort of optimizers really like our program a lot, and they love the data and the testing. And then we also are starting to see more clients who are on GLP-1s. We've had a lot of interest from like the local medical community. So a lot of the doctors have come in, they want to understand our assessment protocols, our training methodology, and are sending their patients to us to make sure that, like, as we know, like if you're taking a GLP-1, it's really important to continue to like build muscle and not
Mhm.
have any sort of wasting effects from that. So yeah, a really big spectrum of clients.
So fortunate that you're attracting the attention of the medical community in that way, like that they want to work with you. I mean, that's a great marketing tool.
That's been I'd hoped for it before we opened, that we were creating something that I felt like, that was at that level. And the medical community got interested really quickly, and a lot of the doctors are actually training with us themselves, which also feels really nice and really validating.
Did you have an in the medical community where you live, or it just happened organically?
I mean, just reaching out to different doctors in the space. Greenwich is sort of a small town in a lot of ways. But yeah, and I had been working on the concept for about a year, actually more than a year before it opened, because I was waiting for the space. I mean, your listeners
Mhm.
will know, yeah, probably the woes of commercial real estate. So
Yes.
I had to wait for this space that I really wanted. So I was like planting the seeds and laying the foundation before I opened.
That's amazing. What other marketing has worked for you? What other tools have you used to get the word out?
Really just like word of mouth. And I did a lot of like sampling at the beginning, like when we were sort of in our beta period, inviting people I knew to come in and try it and give us feedback. And there's just a lot of word of mouth that spread that way. But now it's really sort of picked up, and so it's like one person comes and then they send in their spouse, always like one,
Mhm.
either the husband or the wife comes first, and then the other one always follows, and just a lot of friends sharing it. And so that feels really good, that it's a product, that a service that people want to talk about and share with their friends.
Do you see, Alexia, because you are good at seeing the future, do you see any opportunity for this health span-based fitness approach to morph into hotels or more traditional fitness centers?
I mean, for sure. I don't know, Lisa, exactly what it looks like. But I mean, I know that there's a group fitness concept opening up in New York City around health span. I think just continued education so that people start to like understand their fitness biomarkers, right? We've
Hmm.
been thinking about blood biomarkers 5 years ago, right? We didn't really know what that was, right? Like
Right.
hemoglobin A1C, like all of these things like that. I feel like now educated consumers sort of know like what they need to know on their blood panel, right? And I think now it's
Hmm.
sort of moving into fitness too, of like, oh, everyone should really know how many pounds of skeletal muscle mass they have.
Hmm.
Everyone should kind of know what their resting metabolic rate is. Like there are these things that I think as we all like get more educated, and as Dr. Gabrielle Lyon and Stacy Sims and like lots of great educators out there who are doing the work of like just making us all more educated consumers in fitness and wellness. And then I think the offerings will spring from there.
Well, we're all more educated consumers now, right? Because we're all wearing wearables of some sort, Aura rings or Fitbits, and we know all these numbers. But I mean, it's really just a small bit of what there is to know.
Yes. And I think there's also this push like against optimization. Like I think there's
Hmm.
a bifurcation between like health span and longevity. And I think, especially with everything that just happened with Peter Attia and the Epstein files and, all of the controversy around Brian Johnson. And I think especially for women, and I loved Global Wellness Summit just did this as a trend, sort of like, I don't think any of us are not, like the desire to live to 140, like that's not what I'm trying to solve for here.
Uh-huh.
It's like, how do we make the, 90 years really excellent and
Hmm.
as full and active as they can be? So I think that is sort of an interesting like subtext that sort of, Dave Asprey, like, let's biohack our way to 160 versus like, let's take a just more human approach to health span. And so it's not like, even though what everything we've been talking about sounds very metrics driven, I'm not talking about like optimizing like crazy. I'm just really at the end of the day trying to educate people that building skeletal muscle mass is probably the most important thing you can do for your long-term health. And in the way it's like upstream of everything else from insulin sensitivity to bone health to brain health. Like, you know, the way I view the world and everything I've read, it's like it's all about muscle, and someone else will have their thing. It's all about sleep. But so that is my mission of like, how do I demystify building muscle and create a method that people can do that? And if we can also figure out a way to take that outside of our four walls, like that will be exciting. But I think after a career spent in media where I wasn't, we had this huge reach at Well+Good, but I wasn't like touching, really seeing the reader. It's exciting to have something that's as intimate as a fitness studio and actually to like see the difference that we're making in people's lives and see how clients get so excited when they're like 12 sessions in and they're starting to feel really different in their lives. Like that was sort of the impact I wanted to make in this next chapter.
A question I had for you. I mean, your other business touched thousands of people. I'm sure you had multiple tens of thousands of monthly readers, but this is bricks and mortar, and it's a whole different world and a whole different scale. Is it what you envisioned it might be?
Yeah, I mean, so at Well+Good, we reached 10 million monthly uniques at
Okay,
our,
10 million, quite a few thousands.
yeah. And so that was really exciting to have that kind of, reach. But this is so much more personally like meaningful, I have to say, because you're really like seeing the direct impact on people's lives. And I think like in another life, maybe I would have been a doctor, or like, 'cause
Mhm.
I love that idea of like providing really personalized care. And so I think for me in this life, this is my version of that, of like, yeah, just really having a client feel super cared for. And like every coach knows where that client wants to be at 85, what he or she wants to be doing. We know all of their limitations now in terms of, wrist issues, whatever it is. And we also know like their short-term goals. Like we just had, a client who he hadn't been able to do a pull-up in 20 years. And, he just did 5 pull-ups at his last
That's in
session.
10 weeks because you've only been open 10 weeks.
And so it was so satisfying. I was so happy. So also just those short-term milestones are really nice too.
For sure. So now what, Alexia? Are there going to be more the practices sprinkled around the metro area?
I'm just really having fun with this one. And I think we're just sort of spending this first year in business, learning everything we can about what our clients want. And, we don't even have that first cohort who's gone through their reassessments yet.
Mm,
So this year is just about learning and gathering data. And, as I learned with Well+Good, like our readers told us so much about what they wanted more of. And I think it'll be the same here.
hmm. So, in your career journey, I mean, I have a leadership question about insight. I mean, you are a board member and advisor to multiple companies. How does the knowledge that you've gained, how have you used that to build your own business?
Oh, I think it's just like the collaboration. I don't know. I mean, I love doing board work because in those years after Well and Good, I missed so much working with people and watching businesses get built and problem solving and so on. So I think that the board work just was really fun to sort of stay in the mix and kind of give back however I could to like
Mm.
leaders now. Again, my expertise has always been with like really early stage stuff as opposed to like later stage. Um, but yeah, I think just I don't know, I learned so much from every single person
Mm.
I work with.
Sure.
And it's been fun to like learn about different businesses, like the intimate apparel business,
Hmm.
and which is actually like intimate apparel for people who've had. Anyway, I won't get into that, Lisa. Sorry, cut.
Fine. So, was there anything, Alexia, that you didn't want to repeat from building Well and Good that, you thought back on and said, no, I don't want that again in my next role?
I think the hard thing about digital media was that we ultimately didn't have like so in media, there are very few publications that like actually have a subscriber relationship.
Hmm.
So I think that I felt in media so far removed from
Mm.
our reader. We used to do so many events, which like we love because we were just, Melissa and I, so eager to know who our reader was and understand her better and so on. But at the end of the day, you're very far removed from that. And I think what I wanted was a business that was like much more intimate and hands-on and providing like real-time day-to-day care for people. So I was sort of craving less the
Mhm.
scale and more the intimacy.
Oh, I can totally understand that. I mean, my early career, I was a makeup artist, and
I
you know,
didn't know
you're
that.
I was many, many years ago, and it still miss that one-on-one feeling of like making someone feel so good about how they looked. And it was like you didn't need to get paid for it. I mean, it just felt good. And as you move on in your career and you manage more people or situations, and as you say, you're removed from that end user, and you kind of lose the sense of joy that comes from that. So good
Yeah.
for you for recreating, what you knew you would like, to be
Yeah,
to be out in the field with people.
totally.
What is
Yeah.
something that listeners could do now who don't live near the practice? I mean, what would you advise people who want to live longer and have health span do now to start getting their future selves ready?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's so many great podcasts, right, that I'm sure a lot of your listeners are already listening to, but I think one of the reasons that legacy media is gone is like things like doctor media have gotten so incredible. And so we all
Mm.
just have access through, Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, Stacey Sims, um, Dr. Rhonda Patrick. Like there's so many incredible people in the space. And I think just learning how to like what lifting heavy means for you,
Hmm.
um, and sort of educating yourself on like what you want your fitness biomarkers to look like. One thing that we do is, so if someone comes in and they're a 51-year-old man, they are going to, in their health span report, be staged against other men in their 50s. And so, sort of having a sense of where you're at and if you have adequate muscle to age well, I think is a good first step. And that's something that, you can go online and you can look at normative data and so on. But my big takeaway is like most women are not as strong as they think they are. And I don't mean,
Hmm.
I I mean that in more of in an empowering way. And there's
Hmm.
huge opportunity for all of us. But yeah, and I think that a lot of women don't understand how much better they'll feel when they add muscle. Like you just are more capable and resilient in the world. And that just means being able to like show up in a better way for like your kids or your parents
Hmm.
or your job. So I think just, yeah,
want to do it in a managed way, right? I mean, when weightlifting first became popular, 25 years ago, it
Yeah.
was always, not wanting to look like a bodybuilder and wanting to build lean muscle without making big round muscles. But you need to know how to do that, and you do need some expertise in how proper technique and what is the right weight for a person.
Yeah. And look, there's a lot of right ways. And I think it's just really like that next step, Lisa, can be just people just getting smarter on like what they will enjoy doing. And I think there's like, I know a lot of women who just, they love yoga and running. It's a very common profile. And for them, just figuring out how they add some strength training in. I think for a lot of women in particular, it can feel a little like eating the vegetables you don't like, the strength training piece. So I think just figuring out how to get some of that in a way that you're going to like it is super important. I happen to like really love strength training. It's like my favorite hour of the day is my hour at the gym, but I really recognize that like a lot of people do not like it. And so I think hopefully there will continue to be more models that will help people
Mhm.
increase skeletal muscle mass in a way that they might enjoy more than, you know, trap bar deadlifts and all of that.
Tell us about your personal wellness walk, Alexia. I mean, now you own a gym. I guess you can go there frequently. Do you? I mean, what else do you do?
Yeah, so I am a 3 time a week client. Because I really want to just like, for me, like just thinking about that client experience and really being obsessed with like how we continue to refine it was super important. So I want to like continue
Mhm.
to like enjoy it as a client and also just like work with Nick, who's our director of HealthSpan, on like how do we just continue to like over deliver for our clients. And then I also do a lot of like Peloton for my zone too. I do yoga. I love like hot yoga
Mhm.
just for like recovery. We just opened, a friend of mine opened the local Greenwich Pause studio, which is like a recovery studio.
Right.
So I love going there. And then once a week, I do something called Norwegian 4x4s. This is not in the recovery realm. This is in like kick your butt realm with Nick. I call it Norwegians with Nick. And that's a training protocol where you sort of warm up for 6 minutes, Lisa, just like I do it on the assault bike. Then you do 4 minutes all out, 85% of your max heart rate, killer. Then you like recover for 3 minutes. And then you do that like 4 times. So you're spending 16 minutes at that sort of like peak 85% of your heart rate with those 3 minute rests. And that really helps improve your VO2 max.
And like the concept of sprinting, short
Yes.
bursts to build the cardiac strength.
Yes. Yeah. And it's fun to do it with someone. Like if we had the space, I would love to have a class that was
Mm.
Norwegian 4x4s because that was like our most popular piece of Instagram content was like Nick explaining the Norwegian 4x4.
Really? Well, it's funny. Well, but now we know I'm watching the Norwegians at the Olympics and they are tremendous athletes. So anything Norwegian, I think we need to do it.
Yeah, I know. And that guy Clabo going up the hill.
Amazing with that kick at the end on the cross country. It's just like he just put everyone in the dust on a hill. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
pretty impressive feats. I'm obsessed with the Olympics. I just watch whatever's on. I just like watching these people work so hard and do things we could never dream of doing, most of us.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah.
It makes you realize what the body's capable of because they're not a different species, right? They just put a lot more effort into this one small thing. And I know they can't maybe do what you or I could do for a career, but they can do some pretty amazing things.
I know it is really inspiring. Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing your inspiring story with us. I'm sure the practice will be a huge success. And we'll see. Next time I see you, I expect you'll be even more svelte than you already are. So thanks again, Alexia Brue, for joining us.
Oh, such a pleasure, Lisa. I love your podcast and it's an honor to be a guest today.
Thank you so much. Be well.